On? I think it's on. My name is Sean Shapiro. This is Ask a Traffic Cop, and, well, you're talking to me for an hour about traffic stuff and things. Yes, we answer your traffic and police questions Monday to Friday for a full hour. It's your personal, cop show. It's where we can decipher and explain laws dealing with Ontario Highway Traffic Act. If you have questions about, criminal stuff, we can talk about that. If you've got questions about policing in general, hey, want to become a police officer? Yeah, we can help you with that too. We won't give you the answers to the questions, but we will tell you that we are hiring, and if you'd like to know more about becoming a police officer, you can check out www.tps.ca/careers. Everything you ever wanted to know and more, even contact information to speak to a recruiter. Good stuff happens when you, start the search, that path to the greatest show on earth. And that's what this is. Not this show. Ask a Traffic Cop is good. I won't say it's the best show on earth. I will tell you that becoming a police officer, working with the community, serving the community that you live in and love, that's very rewarding. We were talking about that this morning with a special guest in the office, and you know what? Policing is rewarding. It really is. I started as a volunteer, as an auxiliary officer, volunteering my time. I did that, had so much fun, loved it so much, I wanted to do it full time, and that's what I do now. I transitioned from auxiliary officer to court officer, and from court officer to police constable, and that's now we're into my 22nd year, I think. I joined in 2000. This is 2022. Yeah, 22 years of magic policing stuff. I have folks who are joining us, asking questions, and that's something you can do by either entering it into the Q&A box on Instagram Live, because we're there. Of course, TikTok, with a few hundred people watching us. Hello, TikTok. You're watching, and you can ask questions in the chat. We have moderators helping to convey your questions from the chat into a screen that I can actually keep up with, because y'all talk too much. No, it's not. You've got a lot of questions, and there's so many people in the room that it just spins by. I can't keep track. So I have backup. Yes. And of course, if you're watching on the other platforms, what are the other platforms? Well, it's YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, and even Twitter. Now, Twitter doesn't work. You can see us, we can't see you, we can't see your questions. So if you're commenting there, my apologies. Use the links found in the link tree or at trafficcop.ca to come find the other platforms that do work magically with us, so we can see what you want to know, or see your questions so we can answer those questions. Now, that's for Twitter specifically. Everybody else, when you message me, I see it. So let's start off with Big Jeff Fresh with a good morning, a Killer Draconis. Greetings and salutations. We see you, and we see all of you. Someone's from Brazil saying, very much a fan of the Canadian police. Well, I don't know how to pronounce. Is it Eder Soares? Thank you very much for the comment. Let's see here. You work police department. Yes, Raja, I do. I'm a police officer with the Toronto Police Service here in Ontario, Canada, and I am a media relations and social media officer. So I do this because it needs to be done. No, we've expanded the way we communicate, and giving you access to a police officer 5 days a week, pretty awesome, because a lot of folks who need questions answered, and that's what we do. Okay. We have a question to start. Well, no, before we get to the question, did we hit the time? Did I stall long enough for the update? No, give it another minute. We're going to talk about Vision Zero Enforcement Team, a brief update to say where are they, because it's good to know these things. It's good to know where people are. I think I still have it at my cut and paste deck. I do. Okay, so here's the deal. If you are not aware, Toronto Police has a enforcement team. It's an enforcement team. And what do? They go out and change driver behavior one ticket at a time. They are specifically trying to dissuade you from breaking the law. And they do that by giving you a ticket. And when you get that ticket, hopefully you remember not to get another ticket by changing the way you drive. So if you don't break the rules, you'll probably never meet them. If you want to meet them, you're breaking the rules, you may very well. And it won't be fun because they give you anyway, I'm going to get off this horse. It's going in a circle. So today they are specializing or focusing on two different divisions, 32 Division and 53 Division. And those divisions mean very little to many people, but I can tell you that they mean that there are communities within those divisions that mean a lot to a lot of people. For instance, we have Downsview, Willowdale, Newtonbrook, Bathurst Manor, Lawrence Park, Yonge and Eglinton, Rosedale, Leaside. Those are all neighborhoods with real people who want to be safe. They want to be safe not only when they're traveling through their communities, but while other people are traveling through their communities. I think I said that differently the same. The deal is that there's people who live, work, and play in those places, and they want to be safe. And when people drive in an aggressive, speeding, distracted, or impaired manner, they're putting lives at risk. And those are lives that matter to everyone there. And I say it often. If we all took for a moment and and when we were behind the wheel and considered that everybody in the cars around you, everybody else on the road was important. They mattered, had families, and we all cared about them, or we drive differently, or at least I hope we would. So, yeah, next time you're on the road, consider that everybody out there are real people, not just cars with bumpers and airbags. They're real people, and people get hurt when people do stupid things. And we saw some behavior. I've seen some. On my way home last night on the DVP, I watched a motorcycle with no license plate that was visible to me. Maybe it was under the tire. I don't know. Lane splitting between cars at high speed. Slower when he passed me. There wasn't a lot of room, but he took off. And that kind of behavior is just one of many dangerous things we see on the road every single day. I would have loved to have stopped and charged that person, but unfortunately, my personal car has no lights and sirens, nor do I have a ticket book in my car. But anyway, we have, good morning. Are there exhaust laws for motorcycles? That's the first question of the day, and it's a motorcycle one, on the tail of me complaining about motorcycles. Yes, in fact, there are laws for motorcycles and all motor vehicles. If you are going to have a vehicle on the road, it must comply with the regulations that were in place when it was manufactured. So if your motorcycle was made, probably in the last 100 years? No, 50 years? Anyway, it needs a muffler. The laws in the 70s came out and changed the way most vehicles dealt with exhaust. Modern motorcycles, if they were manufactured with an exhaust, need to have one, and it must have one that works. I see people put itty-bitty little muffler cans on the end, and then they whine and scream, and you hear them for blocks and blocks. They don't save lives. They do annoy communities, and you can be charged for unnecessary noise when you're emitting that sound, but you can also be charged for an improper exhaust system. So it doesn't matter if you're in a bike or in a car or a truck, or I was going to say a plane, but I think those are different rules. Certainly not the Highway Traffic Act that govern aircraft. How do you decide who gets points for an infraction and who gets just a warning? Points are applied by the Ministry of Transportation based on the convictions registered after you're either paying your fine or you are found guilty in court. We don't actually apply points. That's not our department. And it's good because it's more work. We don't want more work. The deal is that warnings or charges are something we can determine. And more often than not, if I stop you, you're going to get a ticket, not a warning, because it's my belief that warnings just accumulate. People don't get the full extent of the lesson with the warning. But there are times when, let's say you're eligible for 6 tickets and I give you 1 ticket and 5 warnings, or maybe 3 of them are really serious and I give you 3 tickets and 3 warnings. So that's something that I would do on a regular basis. Not every interaction with police must be a ticket, but tickets do happen. And when you accumulate enough points, you eventually will lose your license. A lot of people, I was having a great conversation with someone from the Insurance Bureau of Canada, and we were talking about this concept of points and why people want to reduce the points. What does it really mean? Why are they so interested? And many people, you may be one of them, that believe that if you don't get points, your insurance doesn't go up. Like a ticket for 14 over doesn't impact your insurance policy. That's not true. Any ticket will impact your insurance, whether it's 1 kilometer over or 50. Now, obviously, 50 is stunt driving. It's going to be more impactful. But even 1 ticket could be a change in your policy, because the private company looks at it and doesn't care about how many points were attributed to it. They have categories of I think it's minor and major. So even something as simple as not having your driver's license with you could impact your driver's license and it does impact your driver's license. I mean, it could impact your insurance. So things to think about. Points matter to, for implications in tracking your behavior as a driver long term. So if you keep accumulating points, you're going to lose your license. And that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to take away the license for the people who can't follow the rules. And that's where warnings don't work. I want you to get convicted, so that if you keep doing stupid things on our roads and putting people in risk of serious injury or death, well, then you shouldn't be driving. I'm less concerned about you forgetting your driver's license at home, by the way. All right, we got a bunch of stuff that came in. We've got Alice. Alice? I don't know how to pronounce your name. I want to make sure I want to do my best to pronounce it properly. Neon says, good blessed morning, everyone. He's coming in through our Volley server. So Volley is available if you go to trafficcop.ca or the links in our bio. It takes us to our link tree, and in that link tree, you'll see Volley. You can ask us questions there if you're having difficulty getting through to us any other way. And we try and give priority, although I get so focused on the camera and you guys, I don't always look to my left. But on my left, we have Neon, who says, good blessed morning, everybody. And then Alice says, is it Alice or Aless? I don't know. Hi, Sean. Thinking of getting a semi-modulating taillight for my motorcycle. It only flashes for 1 second, then becomes solid red. Is this legal? I like the question, and I was recently talking to someone about this. So under the Highway Traffic Act in Ontario, there is a charge for intermittent flashes of red light. Now, intermittent, I once upon a time thought that intermittent flashes included a modulating brake light, and I no longer believe that. Because if you look at the definition of what intermittent is it's not an equal pattern. So if it flashes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then stays solid, I think, in my opinion, that is actually legal. Now, the problem with opinions is everyone's got one and they don't always agree. So you might find yourself with a police officer saying it's not legal and that it would be an intermittent flash of red light. But my question is, signals, when you turn left and right, when you have a red lens, are flashing. They're legal. So I think you're okay for a brake light. You may have to make that argument at some point if someone doesn't agree. But there you have it. Tell them Sean said so. That I don't think it's illegal. Now, if it were to flash in a strobe pattern, if it was not a solid or measurable frequency, it was intermittent, it would be intermittent, and that would be illegal. I, as a motorcycle rider, like things that make people look at you. And I've been seeing these in all sorts of cars. I'm assuming they're aftermarket bulbs. People have been doing this a lot recently. So, I'm seeing them on the road every day in cars. I've yet to see a brake light recently on a motorcycle. It's years and years ago. I had modulating headlights on my motorcycle. So if it was daytime, they'd go high, low, high, low. That's not wig-wag. That's not illegal, even though not everybody agrees. All right. What do we got here? We got to look at other questions. Good morning. How are you doing today, Mr. Shapiro? I'm doing well, Jace. Thank you for asking. And we have, let me do. If someone else is driving a vehicle and has written signed permission from the owner, can that other person get charged with auto theft? That's a very interesting way of... So if you have permission of the owner, there should be no reason to charge anyone with theft because you need a complaint to register it as stolen. If you just borrow a car, written permission or not, it's not stolen unless it's registered stolen. Someone has to have reported it that way. It probably wouldn't go anywhere. Like we wouldn't be looking for it as a stolen vehicle unless, of course, you were borrowing a stolen vehicle, and then that's a different story. That's what we call a problem. But if you're borrowing somebody's car and you're a licensed driver and you get pulled over for speeding, as long as it's an insured vehicle, you're okay to borrow it. Now, the insurance company for the vehicle for the actual vehicle, that may not like you if you're under 25, if you don't live with the vehicle, depending on their stipulations in the contract. That's a private thing. But from the police perspective, if you're a licensed driver capable of operating or legally allowed to operate a vehicle in that class, you get permission of the owner, you're good to go. Boy, that was a roundabout answer. Okay. What happens to driving complaints made on the TPS website with pictures and videos? Funny, you should mention that. I got a video sent to me this morning, and I didn't have time to do a stitch, but I have to stitch it. I also have to forward it to my friends at the Peel Regional Police Service, or is it Police Department? Peel Regional Police? Regional? I don't know. I'm forwarding it to them because it's really disturbing. It's a video of someone driving. They have Ontario plates. I don't know the location. And the driver has a child who appears to be sitting on their lap or standing on their lap, playing with the steering wheel as they're driving down the street. So that's shocking. Like the level of, I can't even express how disappointing the video is. Because children who are incredibly vulnerable and unfortunately are very breakable when it comes to collisions, and someone who's not even belted, I don't want to get upset talking about it because it really bothers me when people put children in harm's way. So we're going to move on. But I will put the video up. I will stitch the video later. It's disturbing. Nothing bad happens in it, but the fact that someone would put their child at risk, really disturbing for me. Ever since I became a dad, I cannot stuff when you put kids in at risk, it really bothers me. More so since becoming a dad. It's different eyes. Okay. So the question was actually what happens. We actually investigate them. Someone sent us the video of the Mustangs on the Gardner where the guy was standing up and the door was open. We're investigating that. We're looking to identify that vehicle. So I should ask you, if you have any information to identify the vehicles in question, we'd love to know about them because we are pursuing that investigation's an active investigation, and if we can identify the driver and the passenger, we'll be charging them accordingly. Are police allowed to turn their lights on just to get through a red light with no emergency? Yes, they can. Emergency is a very funny word. And while Fire and ambulance require certain criteria to be met in order to go through, to activate that. They can't just go through because they want to get to the other side. Police are written into the Highway Traffic Act differently, and there's no specific criteria. It's the lawful execution of our duties, which could mean that we're trying to get up ahead to verify some information on the car in front of us. Maybe we're following somebody, and we can do that. We can turn it on, go through. Now, we're not doing that to go for coffee. Whenever I talk about this, I get 900 messages, and they've all seen the same car go through the same intersection to go to Timmy's. Well, two things are true. One, it's possible that they activated the lights to go through an intersection to respond to a call and were canceled and pulled off to the Timmy's to cool off. Because I say cool off, running to a call, especially one that creates some level of anxiety, like there's something happening, and then to be told that you're not required, you sort of want to collect yourself. And if you're close to a Timmy's, that's a great place to do it. And that's not a sponsorship for Timmy's, by the way. Any coffee shop will do just fine, or any parking lot, just somewhere to pull off. But there is no requirement to be going to a specific type of emergency. There's many things that we do as police that require us to get there quickly. And we're permitted to do that. And that really upsets a lot of people. What is this? Any idea on who to call to move a no right on red sign higher? Almost every car turns right. And yes, you are correct, Andrew, it is 311. You make the report. They are the people who do it. I had an incident recently, and my friend Maury Sherman put up a video talking about it, improperly placed construction sign that completely destroyed in terms of the functionality of an intersection. And yeah, we called 311, and bingo, bango, done, they took care of it. They are magical folks. I understand that it doesn't appear to be instantaneous all the time, but they do take that information. And just racing it, they won't run over immediately, but they'll look at it. Rob Baker, I'm sorry to hear that. Rob's friend died in a motorcycle collision last night in Welland, Ontario. That is unfortunate. I'm sorry for your loss. We've had a lot of motorcycle riders injured and killed recently, and I was just having a conversation about the fact that we want to talk about it more. So thank you for bringing up a very important topic. Riding is inherently more dangerous than driving. Why? It's not because as a rider you are just going to get into a collision. There are riders but you're less protected in the event of a collision. And then we have riders who choose to ride in a way that is more dangerous. And I'm obviously not suggesting that your friend did anything wrong, but when collisions happen, the fallout is far worse. I've been in a collision. I ended up not in the motor squad. I ended up sitting here in front of you on TikTok and all these other social media platforms because of a collision. Caused injuries that I've not yet recovered from. And if I was in a car, that same collision would have been a nothing burger, right? It would have been no big deal. So yeah, motorcycles have a higher risk. We know that. And when you ride a motorcycle, you have to have your head on a swivel, but we also ask that everybody else on the road be paying attention too. It's not that you have to pay attention for motorcycles. I mean, that's great. You can, but focus on driving, focus on the task at hand. Don't be on your phone. Don't be, rocking out to music, with your eyes closed while you're getting the big hair going, 80s metal. Focus on driving, because it's not just about the driver. It's about everybody else that's sharing the road. That's it. We'll have more motorcycle chat later. But again, Rob, really sorry about your loss. Chase says, happy Friday, Junior. Can you please check out my voice folly from yesterday? Did I not talk about your voice folly from yesterday? I thought we did. Somehow that voice folly came to be part of a conversation. Let's see. I will have a look. I thought we covered it. But maybe I'm wrong. Chase.
It's common for people going through Algonquin Park to pull over on the shoulder and park there to take videos or pictures.
The moose question.
Walking by the street.
Let's start that again. It's a moose question.
If they park on the side of the road. It's common for people going through Algonquin Park to pull over on the shoulder and park there to take videos or pictures of the moose walking by the street. What charge would they be applicable for if they park on the side of the road, get out of their car, and start filming? They're not legally parked. Is that like some sort of distracted driving? Like, everyone does it, though.
Really? So the deal is that distracted driving is you have to be operating the motor vehicle. You can't get out of the car and be charged for distracted driving. It is a parking issue. I have to tighten this microphone. Okay. It is a parking issue. First of all, I know nothing about Algonquin Park. I have to stop that. I'm not ready. I am not someone who's even been, to the best of my knowledge, to Algonquin Park, so I don't know what the roads are like. I don't know what the parking rules are. But if you stop at the side of the road and it's not a parking area, you're stopped on the shoulder. Depending if it's classified as a King's Highway, or there are offenses related to that. So it could be park on King's Highway. It could be no park. I don't know what else parking. It depends on what the signage is. If there's nothing signed and you're just on the shoulder, you might be okay, and I don't know, but I can tell you that it's just dangerous. So I wish I had a better answer for you. If anyone's ever been to Algonquin Park that knows what it looks like, or Chase, send me a picture of what a stretch of road, if you know of any signage. I'd be interested to know. We'll have to get Kerry Schmidt onto the show. Maybe he can talk about parking on mooses. Plural of mooses is moose. Is it moose, mooses, or meese? In any case, I wish I had a better answer for you. But dangerous in any case. What do we have here? Ryan Pinn, salutations and greetings. You had to go mix it up, and instead of greetings and salutations, flip-flop it and make it hard. Okay, fine. Ryan is a driving instructor out in Nova Scotia who regularly says hello when we say hello back. Here's a question. I think it's a follow-up from Andrew. Also, motorbikes are racing down Bloor Street East in the bike lane. Any ideas? If it's truly a motorcycle, that's incredibly wrong, and they should be charged. Chances are they're well, I don't want to say they're not motorcycles, but there are a lot of e-bikes that look like motorcycles that aren't motorcycles. They should, and those are probably illegally set up as well. I'd love to see a lot of enforcement done for e-bikes and vehicles that are not legal on the road, that would be modified. If I maybe we need a task force. It's a major problem. And the whole idea of bicycle lanes is to make it safe for bicycle riders, not for motorcycle riders who are too lazy and or in too much of a rush. They don't want to wait to get through traffic. Well, maybe buy a bicycle instead of a motorcycle. Okay, what are the consequences for riding an insured off-road vehicle on the road? Well, it depends on where you are. In Toronto, would be a prohibited vehicle. You can't ride them on the road. So we would. What we would charge you with? I haven't seen it here. Prohibited vehicle, unsafe vehicle. I would find a whole bunch of stuff for you. Don't you worry. Just don't do it. Knowing what the answer is less important rather than the confirmation that you just shouldn't be doing it. We don't deal with off-road vehicles in Toronto very often, so I don't know what we could charge you with offhand. But out in different jurisdictions, they're permitted. In summer, the four-wheelers are allowed on the side of the road up to a certain speed in municipalities that accept them. Okay. What do we have here? Hi, good morning from Stephen Bell. Stephen Bell, we haven't seen you in a while. I don't think we've seen you in a while. Have we seen you in a while? Ryan Pinn says, have you ever dropped your kids off at school realizing 10 minutes later that you're still listening to the Wiggles? I am so thankful that we're past the Wiggles. We do not listen to the Wiggles. In fact, I can tell you that when the kids are in the car, it's Disney stuff. If I start the car the following morning, there's Disney stuff. It takes about an eighth of a second until News Talk 1010 is playing because I don't want to listen to music. Let's see here. How did you get on TikTok? How did I get on TikTok? That is a question that's being asked, and the answer is I installed the app, I created the account, and then I pressed go. No, so I was originally a motor squad officer. I was injured in a motorcycle collision on duty. As a result, I was put on light duties. I was looking for other ways of supporting and doing police work. So I did administrative stuff, and then because I have experience in graphic design, photography, and videography, I started supporting the media relations officer. I then went to headquarters for a little while doing some stuff supporting the chief's office. And then when I came back, a new media relations officer was in place, and we were doing more and more social media as the pandemic kicked in. And eventually, I went in front of the camera once, and then never stopped. I never planned on being the face of traffic services. It sort of just happened by accident. Ba-dum-bum. Okay. What do we have here? I roll Mace, yes. I feel like Sergeant Campbell would be familiar with provincial parks. Chase, you're absolutely right, and Sergeant Campbell would probably be able to answer that question. He sees me, but he's in the midst of a conversation. Whenever you get a chance, we'll come back to Chase's question. There's no rush, no rush. They want to know about what the charges, what would you be charged for if you were driving an off-road vehicle on the streets like a ATV in Toronto? Is it drive prohibited vehicle or is there something else?
So you can drive ATVs on streets that are allowed. There must be proper. You must have a proper license.
You should have a microphone, then they'll hear you.
How about that?
This is better.
All right. So you actually can drive ATVs or off-road vehicles on provincial highways, on provincial roads. The province used to make it so municipalities would have to opt in to allowing it before anybody could do it. But now, a couple of years ago, the province actually changed it, and municipalities have to opt out of allowing ATVs on roadways. There are certain rules that you have to follow. If the speed of the roadway is under 60 kilometers an hour, your maximum you can travel is 20 kilometers an hour. And that allows for cars and other vehicles traveling at normal highway speeds to pass. If the speed on the highway is above 60 kilometers an hour, then you are allowed to travel a maximum of 50 kilometers an hour.
But just to be clear, Toronto is not one of the places that
Toronto is one that opted out citywide.
We said no, nay.
There are most GTA municipalities, they have opted out other than certain areas. The north end of Peel up in Caledon, I believe above a certain line can do it. Durham region above Highway 7, I believe you can do it.
I've seen some signage that suggests, it's allowed here to there, like there's stretches of road that permit it and then others are not. So you really need to know before you go. This isn't a sort of take your chances and expect to get away with it. You really need to confirm with the municipality you're going to operate in.
Yep, absolutely. And most municipalities will have it, or if there's an ATV association operating in that municipality, they will have all those rules. Where I ride, where I do most of my riding, it's actually listed on their trail map, where you cannot, what roads are allowed to and what roads you're not allowed to. So
I'm opening a can. I need bubbly water. This is good stuff. There was another question about moose.
Moose.
Yes. Well, first, I of course wanted to know if it's moose, mooses, or meese for the plural. But apparently in Algonquin Park, which I've never actually been to, people pull over to take pictures of moose, and they stop their cars, and it's a hazard. So Chase was wondering what the charges might be. Would it be parking on Kings Highway? He was concerned that maybe it was distracted driving of some kind.
Yeah, there is a charge under the Highway Traffic Act for that covers parking on roadways that don't have a specific municipal bylaw. Depending on how you stop your vehicle, you could interfere with traffic. Could be careless. If you get out and leave your vehicle, half on the roadway, could be a careless.
Interesting. Okay.
You know what? Bears. I've been through Algonquin and seen bears walking around and moose walking around. Especially this time of year, be very, very careful. Bears are out and they're hungry, so they're moving about.
I was watching. I'm involved with the presentation that's coming up in October. I'm going to Ottawa with the Traffic Injury Research Foundation, and part of their presentation was a fantastic video. So I was reviewing the presentation, and the video is a helicopter footage of a bear walking around a neighborhood, and someone walking around the side of the house on their cell phone, and didn't realize when they met the bear right in the middle, like they walked like inches away from the bear. I would imagine bears are not fun to meet in the dark alley.
You know what? I don't believe that most black bears, anyways, are predatory animals. They're more foragers. But you know what? You startle one, annoy one.
Or have food.
Or have food. Yeah, I wouldn't put myself up against a bear.
Yes, and they're faster than they look.
Yes, they are, and stronger.
Well, the stronger they look. They look strong. Any advice on a driveway car theft? What's the most effective deterrent? We've had such a big car theft increase, I think, over the last few years. And what's the best thing? Anything that makes your vehicle look less attractive, less easy to steal. So even the old school club that you bolt onto or lock onto your steering wheel is a deterrent. Maybe they'll pick your neighbor's vehicle, and hopefully they have the club too, and they'll just pick a different street. But you cannot prevent every theft. If your vehicle is something they want, they're going to take it. You can do things to get rid of the electronic, cloning of keys. You can cover your VIN number to protect yourself from them getting a copied key at a dealership. There are bags that you can put your key. Did I say that already? That's to RFID protection bags.
Faraday bag?
Faraday bags, thank you. Those are good things to make it more difficult, but we've heard of tow trucks pulling up and just taking the car. So it's a deterrent. Good lighting video helps, but yeah.
Just a caution, Sean, that you can cover your VIN number on your property or private property, but you can't have a VIN number covered when operating on the roadway.
There you go. Yes, it's one of those things where you're protecting it when you're not in the vehicle. I will say this: one of the greatest tips I had heard, and it's completely unrealistic. I'm never going to do it, but a chap on YouTube said, take the fuel pump relay out, and no one's going anywhere with your car.
Well, you know what? There are mechanical devices, electrical devices, which will actually disconnect your starter from the car. It will disconnect the power going to your car. They're designed in a way that'll leave all your memory on your settings, and your car can function as normal, but
nice.
won't actually start.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of interesting things, and port caps, and there's so many unique ways to steal a vehicle that you can go through all the things, and at the end of the day, they're deterrents. They're not absolute protection. How many people actually have a remote car alarm anymore? I used to have a poop poop, and as I walked away, and I set the alarm, and if you touched my car, it made noise. Now I don't know anybody actually puts that on.
You know, a lot of them come from the factory. If I lock my doors remotely with my remote once, it doesn't arm the internal alarm on it. But if I click it twice so that the horn beeps, my car, if I try to get into it or open the door without
Interesting.
key around, yeah, it'll start beeping and honking, and
I did not know that.
gets angry. Yep.
We have a question of if I have insurance policy and lost the papers, so is there I will get ticket. That's verbatim. So the answer is you are responsible to surrender upon demand of a police officer your ownership, your license, and your insurance for reasonable inspection. So if you lost it, yeah, you can get a ticket at $65. Can you get a new one? Absolutely. Just call your insurance company and they'll send it in the mail. But not having it is not an answer. Now, if you have a company that's a forward-thinking, high-tech, fancy place, they may offer an electronic version where you can have an app downloaded to your phone and you can just show it that way. And that's a great way because you have a backup. You still get the pink slip if in my opinion. Stephen, hey, how's it going? When will insurance companies make it mandatory for street scooters to be insured? As of now, they don't require, and if you are hit by one, you are, shall we say, screwed. The answer is that it's not a requirement of the insurance companies. It's the act that governs them. And here's the deal: if they are compliant with the pilots, if you are riding an e-kick scooter in an area that it's permitted, you're a bicycle effectively, and no insurance is required. Although people will say that even a bicycle should be insured because people make contact with vehicles all the time, damage the vehicles, and it's the insurance for the vehicle that covers it. It's really not good. Now, if we talk about a vehicle or an e-bike that's been modified beyond the 32 kilometers an hour that they're allowed to operate at, well, that's a motorcycle now, right? Now, they do require insurance under the law, and we will charge them for failing to have or making operate a motor vehicle on a highway without insurance. Because they are motor vehicles, they fall under the same act, the same rules, and the consequences of that for the first time they're convicted: $5,000 to $25,000 in fines, up to 6 months in jail. It's not a game; it is serious. But people still take significant risks, not only to themselves for their safety, because guess what? Those bicycles that they are modified to do 80 kilometers an hour. I was told yesterday that there was an e-bike / motorcycle looking thing, but it was an e-bike, or designed to be an e-bike, or sold as an e-bike. It was an electric motorcycle because it was doing 90 on the Don Valley Parkway, but it had pedals and all, right? Not an e-bike. But if that person would have an interesting conversation if they were stopped, and I don't know how long or if they've ever operated long enough to be caught, or if I don't know where I'm going with this. If they've been caught, I would love to know what happened. If they were stopped, that's a conversation that I would love to have. Anyway. Do I get a ticket if I don't have my plates on the back and front? I have it displayed on my window. In your window is not a legitimate place to put your plates. It is not in accordance with the Highway Traffic Act. You would get a $110 ticket for failure to display both plates, or for obscure plate, or not mounting plate in accordance with the regulation. There's a whole bunch of different charges. They all mean effectively the same thing. It's $110, and if you kept on doing it, I would actually give you a ticket that would be a summons to court. You'd have to go directly to court to explain to a JP or judge why you don't want to follow the rules. It actually, we do have this escalation option, but $110 for your first option, for your first interaction. Mind you, I probably give you an opportunity to just put it onto the right place. But if you said, no, I like it there, and I've had many people tell me, yeah, just give me the ticket. I'm like, okay. Let's see here. Only accept name brands. Remember, you can prevent counterfeit. What are we talking about? I don't know what. Akil, I'm jumping into your comment, not knowing what you're talking about. Let's see here. Big 8. Lots of different stuff. Boy, I've missed out on this. I don't know where I am in that chat. Let's see here. Do commercial drivers need zero BAC while in personal vehicles or just while operating commercially? Only when operating commercially. Now, granted, zero BAC if you're driving under the category of one of your conditions. So if you're driving a commercial motor vehicle, then zero BAC. If you're a learner under the age of 21 or under the age of 22, because it's 21 inclusive, you're a young person, you can't have any alcohol in your system. So if you have a condition that applies to you, it applies to you as a young person everywhere. If you have it based on vehicle type, it's based on the vehicle you're in. For instance, if you get your learner's permit for a motorcycle, but you're a G-Class 22-year-old driver, you can have over zero BAC in a car, but you be zero BAC while you're learning on a motorcycle. So it's complicated, yet not complicated. All right. Chase left a follow-up on volley. Cool. I saw the picture, by the way. What about street and trail bike? Street and trail bikes cannot, or trail bikes cannot be on the road. Like if they're dual purpose and they're licensed for the road, they're cool. But if it's, so I don't know, what do you mean? Street and trail bike, yeah. Off-road only, dirt bikes, off-road only, dirt bikes are off-road only. No road at all. Ryan asked, Aquila says, Ryan, I asked a question about hovercraft and stunt in a field. I bet they thought I was joking. Aquila, did you have a hovercraft? I was obsessed with hovercrafts as a kid. I thought they were the coolest. I don't think they're that cool anymore. But there was anyway, lots of documentaries on YouTube about single occupant hovercrafts. I just thought they were neat. Yes, Stephen, thanks. I look forward to seeing you on the 15th. I will be joining the gang. Can we call you a gang? I'll be joining the gang at Dave's Corner Garage on Zoomer Radio in studio on the 15th of October. Looking forward to it. And that's just before I head off to Ottawa to hang out with Turf and tour a bunch of schools, talking to students about safe driving, about distracted driving. So Ottawa, we'll be seeing you soon. Dave's Corner Garage, looking forward to it. Lots of good stuff coming up. Lots of good stuff. I can't wait to tell you about it. By the way, the Nerd Dad, if you didn't catch his episode with featuring me, check it out. I had a lot of fun talking to him. Joe's a cool guy. Even though he hasn't decided to make the jump to actually shaving his head, he wears a hat. He's in between. He needs to shave his head too. Join the club. Okay. Okay. Don't drink and ride, period. Yes. Palm face thing. How do you test someone who's driving high? Well, there's a number of things we can use. So we have a device that can check for, using a buccal swab, can check for THC. That's something that's good. But we also have a wonderful ability to do something called a roadside sobriety test, and that's looking for sobriety in general. It's not specific to drugs, but if we believe that it's drugs, we can call a friend. We have people who are drug recognition experts, and they will have you perform a battery of tests, and based on your performance on those tests, they will determine the category of drugs that you're in, and their findings are upheld. They're called in court. They're magic people. They do great stuff. And don't drive impaired. Simple as that. Yes, Akela, we must meet. Absolutely. We got to do a meetup. There's so many opportunities we talked about for 2 years doing a meetup, and COVID was the prevention that kept us from doing that. But now it's different. Now we can actually meet up. So we'll have to do something. I don't know why, but barbecue comes to mind anyway. Let's see here. How could OPP catch a speeding car from behind? How could OPP catch a speeding car from behind knowing their speed? Okay. there's a number of ways of measuring speed. One, we can pace you. We can just maintain the same speed as you, and that will tell us how fast you're going. Aircraft, when you're talking about OPP, they can employ aircraft. They can look at markings on the road. They hit a stopwatch, and they know the distance between two markings. Then they can do math and determine your ground speed. Then there's moving radar, if we're talking about two vehicles traveling in the same direction or even opposing directions on the road. But OPP, they're going to be on divided highways more often than not. So moving radar, the device will calculate the road speed of the actual vehicle traveling. It's often linked to the actual speedometer of the vehicle that it's mounted to, and it can then do the calculations to determine the differential and then find a total speed. So if you're approaching, whether it be from behind or you're pulling away in front, we can measure speed with a moving radar. And not only does the OPP have this technology, but we do too, because we are awesome. Okay. Can you wear headphones while driving, earbuds, or noise canceling? Yes, you can. In Ontario, it is not illegal to cover your ears. In fact, hearing is not a requirement for driving in Ontario. However, other provinces have different rules. Some require only one headphone. Some require, actually, I shouldn't say that. I think it's only one headphone. I think everywhere it's pretty much allowed at least one. But know the rules of where you're going. Ontario, you can cover both ears or have no hearing at all. Now, I will tell you that music, loud music, is a form of distraction, even if it's not using your cell phone. And even if you can't get a ticket for it, it is a form of distraction and can lead to collision or mishap or problems. It's true. Okay. Are you allowed to pass an ambulance with lights and sirens activated if you're doing the speed limit? First of all, no. But why would you even think about that? If it's got its lights and sirens on, it's got to do something, and you don't know where it's going to go. Just don't. Do not pass emergency vehicles with their lights and sirens on. There's nowhere that you got to go that's more important than what they're doing. Sorry. If a high-speed pursuit takes place, will the police give up eventually? So we are constantly, when we're in a pursuit situation, which is where we try and pull someone over, we activate our system and they choose not to comply. That's a pursuit. Even if it's at 5 kilometers an hour for 3 days, it's a pursuit. We are factoring the safety of the public at all times. And anybody involved in that pursuit can call it off if there's a belief that we can't. Now, obviously, if it was 5 kilometers an hour, we'd probably figure out a way to stop you. We put out, anyway, we'd stop you. Even high-speed pursuits, we will employ every opportunity to keep the public safe. We don't want to push you to go faster. So, there are other means. Whether we wait for your house to get home, we have vehicles in other places positioned strategically. Some services will deploy spike belts and things like that to disable vehicles. Depending on the situation, there is a course of action that would be appropriate. But it has to be appropriate, and we have to measure that, against public safety. I was standing right beside my car on the side of the road for some reason, got a parking ticket. Well, if you were in a place that you weren't allowed to park, that would make sense that you got a parking ticket. Hey, Aaron, if you were standing next to your car that was illegally parked, are you parked?
Is the car in park?
Well, they're out of the car. They're standing next to a parked car.
Yeah.
Okay, it's parked. Aaron has confirmed that when you get out of your car, it is parked. Well, what if you're immediately loading? See, it depends. It depends on what the signs are. But the statement is, I was standing right beside my car on the roadside.
I can't hear you.
There's too much noise, huh? Yeah, the statement was, I was standing right beside my car on roadside for some reason and got a parking ticket. It's hard to say. It depends on what the zone you're in.
Yeah.
And
I would have to see where your car was and what the issue was.
Yeah, but chances are there was a legal reason for it.
Yeah, if you said roadside, to me that stop roadside is like, are you double parked? Like, were you blocking another car in? Who knows?
Yeah.
I would have to see it.
Yeah, I don't even want to see it, but if I had to see it, I probably know more about it. Okay, if someone attacks me, am I allowed to use dog mace if I have it on me to defend myself? Allowed to? No, you're not permitted to legally use dog repellent against a human being. You will be charged for assault because you're using a weapon that you're carrying. Now, there is something called weapon of opportunity, which might be a defense that you can use, but you're probably going to have to use that defense with a lawyer in court. You're not allowed to use that tool or carry that for any reason other than against animals. But it is an interesting conversation that we've had many a time. Listen, if you have a pencil on you, it's not a weapon, but if you use it as a weapon, it's a weapon. So you have to obviously be able to explain things, and it's not even explaining things to us because you're going to get arrested. and then you're going to explain it to court. Sarge, would you add to that, or would you disagree? Would you say anything different? I'm just.
Yeah, you know what? You can use as much force as necessary to protect yourselves, but you cannot go one little bit over what is deemed to be necessary to protect yourself. So when you start carrying around stuff like that, prohibited and restricted stuff, you're more likely to get in more trouble, because it almost shows that you have a forethought that you may want to use it on somebody. And if you do, well, why were you carrying it in the first place?
It calls things into question. It takes some explaining, and I imagine, and not just imagine, I've heard stories of people being arrested for defending themselves, but utilizing weapons, even if it's something like dog spray. So,
like the people that drive around with a baseball bat in their car,
but don't play baseball.
but don't play baseball.
Right. What is this? I've seen decked out with lights ex-police cars on the roads. What are limits? I am purchasing one. The biggest thing is you can't obviously have anything that says police. You can't be making vehicles to look like police cars, but there's nothing specifically. A Ford Explorer is a Ford Explorer. If you have a black or a white one, that's not illegal. When you start adding lights and things and trying to look as though you are a police officer, not only is it a safety concern for you, you may have heard in the news people don't always like police and sometimes they attack police. You don't want to make yourself a target, because you are not going to be within the position to respond as a police officer would. And anyway, that's another story.
You know what, Sean? You can put as many lights on your car as you want. You just can't use them.
Even the posing with them, if you're personating, it depends on your behavior. There's an interpretation. But I don't disagree. You can have a movie prop car.
Yep.
You can have it. Smart money is putting shrouds on top of the light bars to say not in service, because again, people will think you're a police officer. They won't notice the fact that it doesn't say police. There's concerns with it, and I'm sure there are people who have been investigated and even charged in relation to that. I've never done it. I'm not aware of the details of that, but I would use caution. That's what I would do. Posing as police could be dangerous. Let's see here. Can I drive my car for a trade-in if my indicator lights aren't working, or do I need to be towed? Trade-in? I'm not sure what that means. Like, does it say check your oil and you want to know if you can drive? There's nothing that says you have to not drive if you're check your oil. It's not a good idea because your car could seize. But Sarge, it depends. If you know your vehicle's unsafe, driving with an unsafe vehicle.
See, I'm thinking indicator lights might mean like the turn.
Turn signals. Yeah, I wasn't picking up what they were putting down. If they were talking about, so indicator lights. If we are talking about signals, you can signal if it's daylight. You can signal out the window. You hand signals.
Yep. Your headlights have to be working 1/2 hour before sunset and till 1/2 hour after sunrise. You have to have red light in the rear of your vehicle during that period of time as well. But as far as signals during the daylight, as long as it can be seen, you can use hand signals.
Yes. But be wary. People don't even know what those things mean. Some people don't know what signals mean or how to use them, but certainly be cautious. Let's see here. If you get pulled over while on the left side of the highway, do you have to pull off to the right? If you're on a divided highway, you can pull over to the left. It says nearest curb or edge of roadway, and in a situation where it's a divided highway where there's a barrier and shoulders on either side, either is acceptable. Very often, police will want you to be on the right side. It tends to be larger. If the opportunity is there, it tends to be larger, shoulders, safer, and will give you direction.
Sean, sometimes I actually like it when they pull into the center, as long as it's the shoulder there is big enough. Because it actually puts my back to the center median and offers a little bit more protection for me. But it depends on the situation.
Yeah, it always does. And at the end of the day, take direction from the police officer, because I can tell you I've seen people go to one way and I've had to say, no, go the other way, and I've given hand gestures or pulled up and given them verbal commands. So sometimes. Chase has a follow-up question to his moose question. Let's see here. No, that didn't work.
So is it true if I'm on the side of the 401 and I just take a phone call, I'd be eligible for parking on the Kings Highway and then distracted driving? But if I stand outside the car on the 401 on the shoulder, then I wouldn't be eligible for distracted driving anymore, and I just get one ticket? That sounds terrible. So
it's funny that you say that. The deal is that unless you're legally parked, you can't be using your phone. But if you're vehicle is disabled, it breaks down, you can pull over. You just can't pull over to take a phone call. You can't pull over just to have a conversation with mom. It's two different things. If your vehicle is disabled, a shoulder is the appropriate use for an emergency stop. At that point, calling for assistance is totally acceptable. But yeah, parking for giggles and taking a call to have a business meeting on the 401, not acceptable. And of course, it's going to be dependent on what the officer investigating determines.
And stepping out of your car on a controlled access highway, first of all, not allowed to have pedestrians on the highway or cyclists, but also put yourself in danger. You know what? Sometimes the best place to be is inside your vehicle with the protections that vehicle offers.
When I was stopping people on the highway, I would get back into my car after I demanded, for documents were made, after I had initiated the investigation. I'd sit inside my car with my seatbelt on. Not just sitting in my car, with the seatbelt on, because very often people rear-end cars that are stopped on the highway. So standing in front of your car, it's a good way to get killed. Standing behind your car, good way to get killed. I don't want to be on the road if I don't have to be when it comes to highways. What do we have here? Oh, we got a couple questions. So Michael has a very good suggestion for preventing theft of motor vehicles. He says they cannot steal a car if you do not have one.
That is true. And it's even better on gas.
It's much better on gas, sure is. Nathan, a new user, says, if I'm at a T intersection going straight through, do I need to stop for a school bus that is on the cross street with its lights flashing? So you cannot pass a school bus with its lights flashing, but there's nothing saying that you cannot continue straight through on a crossroad. You're not passing the vehicle. And I love the fact that school buses are getting some upgraded technology. The fact that camera systems are going to be installed to issue tickets. Has that actually started?
Not that I'm aware of, but I know it's coming.
It's coming. I can't
I
wait.
think it passed legislation, so
That's exciting.
I think it's great.
And Chase says, thanks. I love Sergeant Campbell. Oh, that's not what he said. He says, I love Sergeant Campbell. Always has something to add. That's what he says. But I think he's really saying he likes you. I don't mean anyway.
Or I'm just one of those guys
He appreciates
that the last thing in. The last word.
The last word. How far can your tires poke out on a pickup truck? Tires must be covered by a fender extension, or mud flap combination. They can't just stick out. You should not be seeing any rubber beyond a covered portion, and for good reason. The idea is for safety. You don't want that tire catching a pedestrian and sucking them into the wheel well. These things happen. There's a safety requirement, not just the rooster tail, throwing mud and debris and water up, which is still a factor, but there's a safety component as well. We don't want people making contact with tires.
Can I add something in there?
Please do.
Is Chase going to let me? You know what? As long as the vehicle was manufactured with a covering over the tire, completely covering the tire, then yes. Some very early vehicles did not have those, and they were manufactured. And it met the specifications at the time. You can still drive them.
Yes, that you're absolutely right. If it was legal at the time of its manufacture, it remains legal as a classic or what's it called? Grandfathered vehicle. But if you are talking about taking today's vehicle, adding spacers, sticking your tires out 6 inches because it looks ridiculous. It does look ridiculous. Maybe not on a big rig, big pickup truck, but it looks ridiculous on these little cars. Yeah. We also saw some recent videos or photos of vehicles that were like that. And then not only were they sticking out, but they were, cambered and just riding on the sidewall. Just silly.
One last thought on that, Sean. There is a maximum width that you can operate on our roadways as well. So I don't know what the metric is. It's 101 inches, I believe. That's me old school. But if your tires stick out farther than that, then you need additional, maybe an escort vehicle. You need
wide load
signage. You need stuff like that. So, and a permit to operate it.
Yes, I like that. We should have permits for everything. Chase says, yes, I very much like the sergeant, and I do too. It's amazing. We traffic-minded people stick together. Okay, what if we hit pedestrians and it's pedestrians' mistake? So what happens is when we investigate collisions is we look at what happened. And just because a car hit a pedestrian doesn't mean that the car is at fault. We look at everything that happens and we charge the participants for what they're responsible for. And at the end of the day, then insurance and courts and things look at beyond that. We present the information, we charge based on the evidence, and then we go forward. I've charged many pedestrians for being involved in collisions, even when they were seriously injured. And to not charge them would be a disservice to the person who was unfortunately drawn into a situation that was beyond their control. Because you can be a safe driver and have someone do something really dangerous in front of you, and your life is affected just as much as they are, even if you're not in the hospital with broken bones.
And you know what, Sean? Even their pocketbook could be affected as well. If it's a pedestrian's fault and causing a collision causes damage to the car, that pedestrian is probably uninsured, and you would have to pay your own deductible and put a claim through your insurance to fix your car. So you are a victim of what the pedestrian did.
And therapy too. It is stressful. It is a traumatic experience to be involved in a motor vehicle collision with anyone. And when you hurt somebody, even if it's not your fault, there's a lot of guilt and issues that arise from that. So appropriately recording information and dash cameras. Please, if you have a motor vehicle, if you have a motorcycle, even a bicycle, have a dash camera or a recording system of some kind to protect yourself. Because while there are very often independent witnesses that are magical and come forward and help you out, sometimes there aren't. Or some people think they saw something they didn't see. And a video recording of that is an independent record, and it will help you. It could also hurt you, mind you, but in most cases it's going to help you. Can you have color window tint in Canada, Ontario, Georgina? In the province of Ontario, you can have tint, and tint is, but it's the level of tint. The color is irrelevant because it's even dark gray is a color. Or value, depending on how you want to look at it. But color, or the only thing you can't have is you cannot have a reflective tint that prevents us from seeing inside. You can't have color or any tint that prevents a coating that prevents us from seeing inside the vehicle. If we can't identify you, it's too dark. Doesn't matter day or night. Oh, really? No. Are you kidding me? Ryan says that wants to know if has anyone ever told Sergeant Campbell he kind of looks like Moff Gideon from Mandalorian. I don't buy that. We're not, no. Do you know who Moff Gideon is?
I don't.
Let me pull up a picture of Moff Gideon.
Is he a good character or a bad character?
Well, he's a bad guy.
Oh.
But I don't get this. No. Okay, you have to come over and look at this because you don't look like this man. Oh, maybe no. He might be confusing sergeants.
Hello, everybody.
That's Moff Gideon.
Yeah, no.
No.
I don't think so. He's got way more hair.
He does have more hair. And may not be Scottish. Just saying.
But he may be.
He could be. I'm not going to say he could be. Actually, he absolutely could be. Let's see here. Are speed camera tickets sent to American drivers? I imagine they would be. I don't know so, but I imagine they would be. That's actually run by the City of Toronto. If you are accruing tickets when traveling, that's bad. Listen, photo radar tickets are issued to Canadian drivers when they're traveling through Australia. Like they don't mess around. So I imagine it's the same thing for us elsewhere. Is it illegal to have an air horn on my pickup truck? Not that I'm aware of. I have an air horn on my motorcycle, so I am not aware of it being against any rules. Now, unnecessary use of that air horn could, end up in a situation where you're charged for using it inappropriately, but just having one and using it as an appropriate horn, no rule against that I'm aware of. I
know there are minimum standards for the noise that it creates. That's for safety. That's what your horn's there for. Don't think there's a maximum.
Yeah, I don't think so. I met a guy I was riding to Americade. So I was in, where was it? Where's Americade? Anyway, it was in Americade. Lake George, New York, that's where it was. And he had a train horn. He had one of his saddlebags of his motorcycle converted to a compression tank, and he had a railway train horn. It was unbelievably loud, but it got the point across. So we have Nathan wants to know, if an officer is attempting to pull me over, but I feel for my safety as well as the officer's safety that there is no safe place to pull over, can I continue to a safe place? And if so, what would be the best way to show my intent to stop to the officer? So you want to communicate. So here's the deal. You don't get an opportunity to pick your parking spot. If a police officer is initiating a stop, you must stop safely and immediately, at the side of the road, nearest curb or edge of roadway. If you're shopping for parking, you're ignoring that stop, you're initiating a pursuit by definition. Pull over, let the officer give you direction, tell them that you don't feel safe, and then they'll possibly let you move, but it's going to be up to the officer. At the end of the day, we are responsible for your safety when we're pulling you over. We have our lights and sirens. We have, to initiate to you, to communicate with you what's going on. But we have rear flashing lights to communicate with people behind us, to have them slow down and pull over. And there is a slow down and pull over law, where we, of course, hope that people comply with that. But no, you can't just keep driving looking for better parking.
You know what, though? I would suggest the use of your signal. You know what? When the lights go on behind you, you know what? Acknowledge that you know that it's happening, and you're going to pull over as quickly as you can, but as safely as you can to the edge of the roadway if it's a divided highway, or the right side if it is not. But use your signal so that the officer is aware that you're aware.
Yes, but I've pulled people over. Now, this particular person that I'm thinking of turned out to be impaired. They signaled. They slowed down. As soon as my door opened, they started moving again. And there was a bit of a game here. And I thought, well, originally maybe I thought you were just shopping for good parking. And it wasn't too concerned because it was about 3.5 kilometers an hour. But they were very impaired, and they got very arrested. Roundabouts. Should you ever use a left indicator within a roundabout, or only use the right signal to exit? So we actually had that conversation not too long ago, because you were in Europe and you noticed that people do use a left indicator there.
That's correct. Now, you must think as well that they're operating on the opposite side of the road. But yes, they signal their intention of where they want to exit the roundabout. So if you're pulling up and you want to leave at, say, 9 o'clock, and you're entering at 6, you would put a left turn signal on.
Well, you just really, So, no, you would never use a left signal. I wasn't thinking about wrong side of the road. I was thinking about signaling your intention to exit. So you would not, in Ontario, signal left to say you're staying in. You would signal right to say you're exiting. If you're not signaling, you're staying in. Unfortunately, many people don't signal at all, whether they're in roundabouts or any other time. So please signal your intention to leave. It really makes people, or it makes it easier for people to enter the roundabout safely, because I can't even begin to tell you the insanity of the neighborhood that I frequent, where people just drive and try and jump in front of you when you're on a roundabout. And of course, whoever's in the roundabout has the right of way, and you must yield to them. The scariness of my experiences on roundabouts. I'm supposed to be safer.
You know what? I love them. Absolutely love them. If people know how to use them and use them properly, they are the best.
It's the if. It's the if. Let's see here. Jay says, Sean, I have a little display screen that I can put emojis on the back of my window. Is this legal? I can put on a video for you later if you don't know what I mean. I've seen the product. I think they're hilarious. I don't think that they are I don't think there's any prohibition. There's anything wrong with having an illuminated emoji happy face, or I've seen some pretty decorative birds that have been illuminated. But the deal is that you having a light in the back of the window, as long as it's not projecting over a certain amount of I don't think there's anything issue with it. What do you think? Any issue with having an illuminated emoji?
Well, what color of light is it? Which way is it facing?
It's rear facing. I'm going to assume it's going to be yellow because it's going to be a happy face. It wouldn't be a projector bulb per se. It would just be illuminated. No different than a lift sign that's inside of a window, a glowing orb.
Mm-hmm. I don't see any problem with it.
I don't either, but
it can be just distracting.
It may be, and usually it's something like an angry face if someone passes you or does something, or is tailgating you. It's to say, I actually had, when do you remember the It Store?
I do.
So the It Store was the most magical place, and it was attached. I think it started as Mr. Green Jeans, possibly, maybe. So actually, this is probably Mr. Green Jeans' store. While you were waiting for your table so you could get your broccoli and cheddar soup, it was the best thing on the menu. I bought this thing that suction cupped onto the back of the window, and it had a suction, not a suction up, air pump, an air bubble, ball, whatever. You squeezed it, and it would flip up. So you could put different signs inside, like back off, or, go away, or things of that nature. You squeeze the bulb, and the little sign would flip up, and it was cool. And now you can do that electronically with no squeezy bulb, just a remote. Boy, technology is really magical. We've come so far. We can tell people what we think by emoji now, and not have to use, air pressure. I digress. Okay. If I see an officer in a fight, am I allowed to step in and help him so he doesn't get hurt? Eric Jessen wants to know. You know what? I've done it. I've come across an officer in York Region. I don't remember if I was a police officer or not. And I stopped to help, and I announced my intention to help from far away, because how does that officer know that you're coming to help? Listen, if an officer is losing the fight, any help's going to be good help. Calling 911 is probably a good start before you even jump in, and jumping in, knowing that you're going to get yourself or may very well get hurt is appreciated, but be careful. I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts running around with this, but I certainly would appreciate help if I was losing a fight.
Absolutely. In fact, I've been involved in one before where I actually needed some assistance. Late at night, very north end of the city where it wasn't so populated at the time, and a very angry man didn't want to get arrested. The fight was on, and people pulled their car over to assist.
Thankfully.
And including a fire truck. And those guys wearing bunker gear when they sit down on somebody, it helps. Get handcuffs on.
I got to tell you, I arrested someone while I was off duty in my neighborhood. It was an interesting situation, but the details of which are unimportant, other than the fact that I was on the ground, taking physical control of this person, and a City of Toronto truck pulled up to me and said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm arresting this guy. Where's your badge?" "I don't have it on me." It was just really, it sounded funny. It was actually, I was worried that I was going to get this guy intervening, not believing I was a police officer. It was a problem. I wasn't exactly dressed for arrests. But, it happened. And it all worked out. And then the cavalry came and multiple cars came and they continued the arrest. And it was all good. Okay. We're actually over time. And I want to see if there's anything magical. Let's see here. UK and Ireland drive on the left side. Europe drives on the right side. I don't know. I figure if it's not the way we drive here, it's wrong. Isn't that?
No, he is absolutely correct. Europe does drive on the right-hand side. The UK, a few other countries, not very many of them. Australia, and it's a tough driving on the opposite side. Your brain is hardwired to. When you've done it so many years here.
Yeah, I rented a motorcycle in Australia, and it took some adjusting. I also rented cars in Australia, and I did that prior to renting the motorcycle, which made it a lot easier to transition because there's no hint on a motorcycle as to what side to remember that you're supposed to be. But with the car, it was very weird shifting in the left hand with the left hand. Very weird. Okay, we're about to say goodbye.
Sean?
Yes?
Your listener who suggested I look like somebody?
Yes.
I normally get Brent Butt most of the time.
Brent Butt?
Brent Butt from Corner Gas.
Yes, from Corner Gas. A magical Canadian comedian.
Yeah. Have a look at Brent Butt and see what you think.
Maybe Brent Butt. Okay. Is it recommended to call the police if I were to get into a collision? Yes, getting direction. There's a number of things. First of all, you don't have to always. If it's under $2,000, it may not be a reportable collision. If it's above $2,000, it's a collision that could be reported at a collision center as long as the exchange of information was all legitimate. People had insurance, people had driver's licenses. There was no criminal act. There was no injury. Even injury can go to the collision reporting center unless someone's traveling or being taken to hospital by ambulance. Then it's going to be an at-scene investigation. So should you call and get direction? You could if there's any question. You're not necessarily a mechanic who can estimate the value of a collision damage. A scratch on a Mercedes could be $5,000, right? So to be able to say that this is something that doesn't require police may not be a call that you can make. But if there's no criminality or no major situation dealing with either fixed property like a pole, because police need to attend for that. What else would you add, Serge?
Well, other than the fact that there are collisions that you can be involved in that are below the threshold that don't need to be reported to the ministry at all.
Right.
And when you go to the police, all we do is complete a report and forward that on to the Ministry of Transportation. So it isn't really even a police report we fill out.
But in terms of if you have questions, if you're unsure, you certainly can call the police and get direction. We have magical people on the phone and say, we'll give you direction. They'll tell you what has to happen next. And especially when you're in a stressful situation, you may not remember this conversation. Yeah, nothing wrong with calling the police. They may not come. They may tell you to go somewhere else. But they'll at least give you some guidance. Do rear lights have to be red? I came across a car with modified bright white ones. Yeah, they do. They have to be red. You can't project white light to the rear. The only white light that's permitted on the rear of a motor vehicle is the license plate bulb, which must be white.
And reverse lights.
And reverse lights, which aren't part of driving forward, so I don't even include that. But yes, you're absolutely right. What is this? Where I work, we have an inside private road with a lot of people speeding. What options do we have? If it's where you work, get someone to write down the license plates and then document all those people for being unsafe in the workplace. In terms of, if they're not stunt driving, if they're not doing over 150 kilometers an hour, it's not speeding on a regular road. What else could they do?
Yeah,
Install speed bumps?
It's private property. Talk to the property owners. You can make modifications to the roadway to slow them down.
Yeah.
Speed bumps, also called sleeping policemen.
I like that. Rumble strips. Think the whole thing just destroy the undercarriage of someone's car. That's not good. Okay. I am out of time. As much as I'd love to sit and talk.
I think you've said that once or twice.
I know, but then I there's such good questions. So with that, we will say goodbye. We'll start this different song for the outro today, but we will be back tomorrow to do it all over again. So if you didn't get your question answered, please come back. We would love to talk to you. We do this Monday to Friday from 10 to 11, sometimes till 11:11, which is what it is right now. If you want to ask questions, either in preparation for tomorrow or just because you want to bump the line, join us by going to trafficcop.ca. Click the button that says Ask Me a Question on Volley. It'll bring you to Volley. It's a free community space where you can hang out with us all the time. Anyway, have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Drive sober. Park legally. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Take care and see you soon.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3,